listening to the Patriot Nation Podcast.
All right, welcome into another edition of the Patriot Nation Podcast. As always, we are a CLNS podcast, a proud member of the CLNS group. And make sure you download and subscribe to all of those shows. But this show tonight is the Patriot Nation Podcast with you guy, Pat Lane, here with my man, Matt St. Jean. And Matt, for the first time in this calendar year, as you figure out your camera over there, for the first time in this calendar year, there's officially Patriots football going on right now. I don't know if you can call it real football, but still, there's officially Patriots football going on, and we're pretty excited. That's not this calendar year. That's not true, but you know what I mean.
For the first time in this NFL calendar,
In this NFL season, yes.
Yeah, since the new, their calendar year started. Yeah, it's
Exactly.
exciting. Football players on a field wearing some level of padding. There's a football being tossed around.
Yes,
Things are better than they were a week ago.
That is correct. Yep. Train Kobe saying, what's up? Hello. Paper Waves here again. What's up? How's it going? Nelson, back up in here. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you. And then Eric, thinking what we're all thinking right now. Put the flipping pads on. And as people always point out, that is going to happen on Monday. It's just like, it's been very frustrating watching. And that's kind of what we're talking about off air. Like, there's not a lot to talk about. And we have some things to talk about, okay? Like, let's get serious, right? We have some things to talk about, but there's not as much as you'd like to be able to talk about because there's just not a lot going on. Today, they had a practice with no helmets on, for God's sakes. The guys were out there wearing bucket hats, walking around. It's just like,
Well, and I think it's also, to a certain degree, like, the way the last couple training camps have gone, it's like, there's nothing, like, the offense is out there, and, we saw a short passing day and a day where the offensive line didn't look great. And it's like, all right, well, that's just the status quo with this organization until we see something different. You're not really going to know if it's different than that until the pads come on. And, the things that Vrabel brings to the table here, you don't see until the pads come on. We're not. So, I do think there's some positive takeaways. Interesting nuggets so far. But the big headline-grabbing stuff, that's going to be next week, unless you're out here looking for clicks.
Well, when you're looking for content, right? When you're out there looking for content like Felger and Mazar, you're going to say the offensive line has looked bad and they're struggling and blah, 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 blah. What are you talking about? You're telling me, wait a second, hold on. You're telling me that Harold Landry is beating Morgan Moses off the line, that he can get to the edge faster than Morgan Moses when they can't actually hit each other? I can't imagine that that's true. How could that possibly be true, that Harold Landry would be faster? Of course he's freaking faster than Morgan Moses, for God's sakes. Like, it doesn't make any sense. You don't know what the line looks like until they put the pads on. You don't. You just don't know what it looks like. And, right now is the technical stuff that and I want some of this I'll talk about, because I think even though we're not seeing it, they're seeing it. And I think that that's helpful. But the point is right now they are working on steps and fundamentals. And I'm sorry, I don't care who you are. I can tell you right now, Michael Felger has no idea what the hell he's talking about. But even if you are someone that knows what you're talking about, you can't tell what they're doing right now. You can't tell if you're happy with the way Will Campbell's looked at left tackle. There's no way to know because they're not wearing pads yet.
Well, and there's, I think we can jump into one of the top takeaways from this. I think, honestly, one of the headlines we saw today is Jared Wilson getting very involved. And I don't want to be a Debbie Downer at all, but I did see a lot of people being like, "Oh wow, it's good. Jared Wilson's already pushing for starting reps here because he was filling in left guard, center, and right guard." And it's like that's not really what this means right now. It means that the guy they drafted on day 2, who played center and guard in college, is mixing in at two different spots where you don't have a starter right now. It's a good sign. It means mentally they think he's ready to handle that stuff. If he's able to actually execute the stuff, nobody's going to have a clue until next week. And I'm not trying to throw too much cold water on it, because I like Jared Wilson. I'm very optimistic about it. And these are the opportunities we hoped that he was going to get. And it's awesome that he's earned it. Whether or not that makes the 2025 Patriots better than the 2024 Patriots at those spots depends on what happens, starting next Monday over the next month as these guys get on the same page. It's not, and you shouldn't be getting too high or too low off of anything that's happened.
100%.
Except maybe one thing we can probably get low on. We can save that for later.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. But I think overall, when you start looking at it and you say, okay, it's good to see at least Wilson is out there.
Yeah.
Right. And he's getting those reps, because the top tackle out there right now, the top backup tackle out there right now is Jamontre Jacobs.
With Vidarian Lowe on top, yeah.
And Vidarian Lowe's on the pop, of course, but you would have liked to have seen Caden Wallace jump into that role. You'd like to have seen, anyone else, Marcus Bryant, or, I think Marcus Bryant's really a left tackle only, but I guess we'll see. But you would have liked to have seen one of those young guys step in. Now, again, they're not in pads yet. So who knows if that's really what they have in mind. But just the fact those guys are out there working, that's something for hope when you're talking about Wilson. When you're looking at some of those other guys, that's kind of an issue. That could be an issue.
Well, I did think the Caden Wallace thing was interesting. We talked about him last week or earlier this week about how, we thought he could be in competition for that backup right tackle job. And from everything I've read, he's playing guard right now. Which people thought would be the case coming out in the draft. One of the reasons why people were so surprised the Patriots drafted him and said he could play left tackle, because a lot of people didn't think he was going to be a tackle in the NFL. A lot of people thought, or if he was going to be a tackle, he's going to be a backup. There's a guy people looked at and thought maybe he has 4-spot versatility. You can just play him at either tackle or guard spot. He can be a backup for all of them, be a useful player. I like that they're moving him into guard, because I feel like that better fits his skill set. You also worry because, this team needs tackle depth, and if they have identified this early on that they don't think he can play tackle, then that's one more thing you need long term. In an ideal world, best case scenario, he's good enough at right tackle that after the year, when Morgan Moses is getting older, you can move on and you have your right tackle of the future.
Right.
As things stand right now, even with, and Morgan Moses, people said hasn't looked great. I don't really care how he looks right now. But you need a tackle for next year. Still, even though you just took one, you need at least one for next year.
Absolutely.
To replace the right side, and that's before we've even seen what Will Campbell looks like on an NFL field. I hope he's fantastic. But there's a world where you get out there and it's, man, the line's not where we need it to be. And So, and then going back to Caden Wallace there, a lot of competition at guard, a lot of bodies playing in there.
Guys.
That means guys that we had hoped for a week ago were full on getting cut off this roster.
Yeah. And that's kind of how it seems right now. Now, again, there's a long way to go. Camp is long. Preseason goes on for 3 weeks. Injuries happen, right? Guys are going to get hurt. That's going to happen. And so, as much as we don't want that to happen, we know that, the guys that are out there on the field today are not going to be, not every one of those guys is going to make it to the season fully healthy. And so whether a guy like that ends up on the IR or whatever the case may be, that's something that, that I guess we'll see what happens. But the offensive line is a good talking point. Unfortunately, there's not much to glean from there as far as from our perspective. I will say I've been incredibly impressed with Vrabel running practice, right? And we talk, we all heard people talking about him being all over the place at practice, right? Phil Perry was like, I was exhausted watching him at practice, right? And of course, those were closed to the public, so it was just the media there. And let me tell you something. On day one, on Wednesday, that man was everywhere. Like the second or third sequence or section of practice of the season, he was out coaching like 30 guys on punt block, and just running a drill for punt block, and Vrabel's running the drill. And it's just like, he's everywhere. He's playing, scout team safety, talking crap to Stephon Diggs and Pop Douglas, and he's out, but he's everywhere. He's with the offensive line. He's with the defensive line. He's giving Hunter Henry pointers on blocking technique, and all, like, he's just doing everything and talking to everyone and is everywhere at once. It's unbelievable to see. And so he has been, kind of something fun to watch, even though there's no actual football going on.
Yeah, and that's the end. I said a lot of the variable impact is going to come when you have the pads on, but the initial energy level being this high, and by all reports, OTAs and these practices have just been better organized. The timeliness has been quicker than it was last year. The less time in between periods, and everyone is a little bit sharper with what they're doing. So, always good to hear that. That's what you were expecting with this group. That's why you brought them in. It's a very experienced group. You expect them to run a tight ship and for things to be, highly professional, and hopefully that turns into, points scored and wins and results on the field here in a couple months.
Well, I think I will say, I thought last year, the organization of what they did last year, I thought was fine. I will say that this year, so 2 drills that I saw them run, which I thought were fantastic. And I think really what Vrabel is preaching, and one of the reasons why they did the practice I think they did today, Vrabel is preaching that every single thing you do matters, that our steps, that our fundamentals have to be perfect, right? And he's talked about how we want to take advantage of bad football. To take advantage of bad football, we can't have bad football. And to not have bad football, we have to do everything right. And so we're not making mental mistakes. First day of practice, they had 3 offensive lines out. Now they're running plays on air. There's no one there. It's just them, and there's some coaches kind of scattered around. But running the 3 offenses next to each other gives you 2 benefits. Number one, when you're watching the film back with the players, you can show them literally at the same time, not in a different clip, literally at the same time. Look at what Mike Onwenu's doing over there at right guard. All right, you, Layden Robinson, at right guard over here, you're not doing it. Watch what he does. Watch what you do. What are we doing here? Right? Like, you don't have to spice together the film. It's happening simultaneously. You can watch it all together. And so that is a big advantage. The other big advantage is that the reps that these guys are getting, triples. Instead of the 3 offensive lines going in and out for each other, and now the backups are getting 2 or 3 reps, and the second stringers are getting 4 or 5 reps, and the starters are getting 10 reps. Everyone's getting like 20 reps. And that's huge when you're talking about everything needs to be right. So our footwork needs to be right. Where we step is going to go. All of those things are important. You're getting a ton of reps to do that. And I thought that was fantastic. What I really loved as well, they ran a drill, and I think they ran it. This is also from the first day as well. They just ran it's a counter drill. It was a counter play action fake. So and we've seen Brady run it a million times, where Brady opens up to the right, there's no back there, turns back to the left, play action fake, and then goes back to pass, right? Well, they're just dumping it off to the running back, a yard past the line of scrimmage. But what they did was quarterback and running back. So let's just say it was Drake May and Ramondre. Drake May and Ramondre walk through it, literally, like physically stop at the mesh point. Like they physically stopped at the mesh point with the ball in his gut. Pulls it out. They continue to walk through, and he hits him with the pass. Then those same two guys step up and they run it at full speed. And so it's here are the steps. We're going to walk you through step by step. And we're going to stop at the mesh point to make sure you've both taken the right amount of steps, exactly where we need to be when that mesh point happens. And then we'll run it. And now we'll run it full speed so you can see exactly what we need to do. And that, like, the attention to the minutia detail, for me, it matters. That stuff makes a difference. And right now, when you can't hit people and you're not doing things like tackling and breaking tackles, that stuff matters. And the fact that they're spending so much time on that, I think, is a good sign for things to come.
Well, those are the building blocks. If you can master that stuff, that's what allows you to layer the other stuff on. And, I think one of the issues with the last however many years of Patriots football is that they've never been good enough at the basics to then really layer on the next level of stuff.
Right.
And I will say there were points, I think, in 2021 and 2022 where it seemed like they kind of realized that, and at points they just went to the trick stuff. Like then 2022, they were so bad at the basics that they just kind of threw that in the trash and said, we're just going to run like a vertical offense and see what happens. And that was the best it looked all season. It still wasn't good, but that was the best they were able to do with it. But you hope that with this detail focus and such an experienced coaching staff that everyone is able to get a grasp of these basics early on, and then you can level everyone up. Because if you can get your footwork just right for those plays, that's how you dress things up so the defense can't tell if you're handing it off or not. Is this the counter, or is this the play action counter, or is this, you go back to like now I'm thinking 0304 Patriots all the time. But you think about all the plays they ran back then where it's like, all right, we're going to do play action and we're going to have an end around play action off of it. So it's going to be two fake handoffs and then, quarterbacks back there figuring out what to do from there. That's where you can get to some of that real razzle dazzle.
Oh, yeah. Well, remember, this is
someone like May too. It's perfect for that stuff because he's so mobile. Like, can our offensive line protect that long? Probably not. Can they protect that long if you've sold the other stuff and protected just well enough that, May has to move around to make the throw, but he can move around to make the throw. That's kind of, especially for this season, I think what your end goal was.
Yeah, and you look at McDaniels and how they have an ability to run kind of that same play. I mean, look at the Super Bowl against the Rams. They run the same play, four plays in a row, but they just throw a little tiny variation on each one of them. And they all end up with completions, and then of course one of them ends up with a long completion to Gronk down to the goal line. But like they just run the same play. They find something they like. They run the same play, but it's the same personnel, but the formation looks a little bit different. Same exact play, different guys in different spots, and they get people open. And it's just like that's the type of stuff that you could do.
Well, and then you look at that, like that's the Haas wide juke sequence in that Super Bowl. It's also not the kind of thing that can ever show up on a practice field because what that is it's your coach and your quarterback doing a ton of preparation on a defense and then putting that into action. You can't do that until you get to the regular season. We're going against live opponents and you have film on what they're doing and you identify tendencies because that's where, I think McDaniels has been very creative. I think in particular, you look at, obviously the 07 Patriots hot out of the gate with something new that no one knew how to stop and really didn't start. Like that offense was red hot for the first 2 months and no one had a clue what to do against it. Or you look at like the 2020 Patriots with Cam Newton and that offense got off to a very good start. They just, the players weren't good enough to sustain that. So you hope you see that, but where it's at its best was when it was working in concert with a quarterback who is as good as Tom Brady was. And, McDaniels and Brady able to work together with what they're seeing from defenses and applying that week to week. What made the short stuff with Brady so good was how efficiently he could do it. how quickly he could get to his reads, how accurately he would make the throws, and quarterback can make that throw. Not everyone can do it 20 times in a game without messing it up somehow.
Yeah.
And that's where, again, building blocks Thursday, was that kind of day where they're working on first down stuff, short stuff, screen game, that kind of things. And that's just, that base layer and trying to master it so you can do the other stuff. And, obviously Drake May is not going to be at the Tom Brady level this year. That's fine. That's, not really the expectation here anyway.
Right.
And he's never going to be that ruthlessly efficient guy either. Like, yeah, I think he's probably going to hit more deep shots more often than Brady would. And he's probably not going to be as efficient on the underneath. And that's fine. His efficiency in the underneath is going to come from him running too. In a way that you don't really get from Tom Brady. But just building in that stuff so that when you get to week 6, it's like, okay, now we can turn to some of the things we were doing on day 3 because we mastered it mentally and we know we can execute it. And because we know we can execute it at a high level, we can call it in spots because, their linebacker doesn't know how to cover this thing or their safety is going to get caught up on this thing.
Exactly.
And just knowing that the basics better than the defense does.
100%. And that's really what it comes down to. And for me, it's one of those things where even though we're not seeing anything in practice, right? And, Kyle Williams made a really nice catch on day 1 with Gonzo draped all over him. It was a great kind of comeback catch through contact, through, an all-pro corner. And then Pop had a really nice catch, down the sideline, whatever. But again, we're talking about hats and t-shirts, shorts and t-shirts. Like it's not a competitive live drill. That's what I'm waiting for, like, let's see what the offense looks like when they're going against other people, and so, we'll see. We'll see kind of how it all shakes out. But for right now, it's about understanding the basics, like you said, and the fundamentals and knowing that stuff better. And again, the big push from Vrabel has been, what did the Patriots do forever? We talked about this, we went through this whole 03-04 thing. All we talked about was some days the Patriots offense would suck and the defense would get them the ball and they would score. And they took advantage of bad football. And in order to take advantage of bad football, you can't play bad football yourself. And I think that, that's what they're working towards. And defensively, hopefully they can kind of get them to that point. But, it's that kind of fine point attention stuff that I think is important. And there was a play, I was there today as well. Again, they're not wearing helmets, right? So they're literally walking through it. But they ran a play. And one of the coaches came on a blitz and came in untouched to Drake May. And so, of course, they line back up and they run it again. And I'm thinking Demontre Jacobs at right tackle. I'm thinking Demontre screwed it up. Nope. Ramondre screwed it up. Should have blocked the guy coming and didn't. So he goes to block him. Well, for whatever reason, the second time they ran it, they weren't happy with it again. Now, I don't know if they weren't happy with it because the communication wasn't good. I'm not sure why, but they ran it a third time as well. And so it's just like, yeah, they're not even wearing helmets here. Oh, looks like I lost Matt for a second here. Boy. But no, Matt, are you there?
Hello.
There he is.
Twice. Yeah, my internet issue where it just goes out had been fixed and started happening again today, so that's lovely.
Love it. There you go. Yeah. Gotta love New York City. But anyways, my point here is that, even when they're not even wearing helmets, when it's literally a walkthrough and the guys are just walking, the attention to detail matters, and the coaching staff are making sure that every single guy on the team knows and understands that, and it's just like, and that's the way it was here forever. And I think that, if that can be like that again, then that would be good.
And I think the players they signed this offseason, from everything we've heard, have been only reinforcing that. The mic'd up with Robert Spillane that they released, he seemed like a great addition there. Obviously, Morgan Moses is a fantastic leader, and he had great things to say about Will Campbell and just the way they've been pushing one another. Talking about how Will Campbell has been pushing him to get even better, and how they're kind of getting it from opposite ends of the age spectrum here, and he really enjoys that.
Yeah.
So, you love to hear that. And these are, they're talking the talk. Still got to walk the walk,
Of
but
course.
it's better to talk the talk than to not at this
That's
point in the
correct.
process. Yeah. So, we love that. I also I really like this practice schedule to start that Vrabel has set up, because I think it helps reinforce this. You get 2 days of practice, and Friday is basically a walkthrough, like you said, bucket hats, not even helmets. And then it's going to be, apparently, we've heard, much faster speed on Saturday.
Mhm.
And then they're off on Sunday, and then starting Monday, they're allowed to put the pads on. So you get 2 days where you're doing stuff, then a slow speed day where we're getting back to fundamentals. Then we're gonna go fast, and then you get an off day. You get to relax a little bit, and then you come back in, and it's pads. So that gives you some slow time in between the fast periods to evaluate yourself and work on your own stuff to make sure that you're good to go as a player. And I think that sets you up for success. At least, it gives you the opportunity to set yourself up for success as a player or as a coach. Give the coaches time to make alterations to things as needed, and whether it be player preparation or what they want to do in their sessions. I like the setup. I think it puts players in a good position. Now it's from there it's up to them to actually take advantage of it and play well.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
Let's hope so. So, all right, you want to take a quick ad break, and then we'll kind of finish up our thoughts here for the first few days.
Yeah.
All right. So, of course, this ad break obviously is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to turn your sports knowledge into cash. With millions of members, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. Just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Now, again, right now, we have baseball going on. We have women's basketball going on. We have some golf going on. We get esports that's always going on. And again, my favorite thing about Prize Picks is that you can mix and match your lineup. So you can take a baseball player, and you can take a women's basketball player, and you can take an esports player, and combine them all together into one roster, and make something kind of funky. And that's my favorite part about Prize Picks. So get in on that action for sure, because even though it's the dog days of summer, and even though football's going on, there's no real rosters of football, although there will be soon before the end of the month. But nevertheless, there's still plenty of sports going on for you to get involved in. Now, one of the nice things about Prize Picks, they also offer Venmo, Apple Pay, MasterCard, and more for quick and easy withdrawals and deposits into your account as well. Don't forget, Tuesdays are Taco Tuesdays, so usually about 50 and 25% off on select projections, and then Friday is Flex Friday. You opt in and tap the checkbox in your lineup builder, and then you're eligible for protected play. You choose the squares from any game. It doesn't matter. Just choose the squares from wherever you want. If the lineup does not win, you get your net losses back in promo funds up to your promo limit as soon as it settles. So what are you going to do? You're going to download the app Prize Picks. You're going to put in the promo code CLNS. When you do that, you're going to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. Okay, so again, that's download the app Prize Picks, put in the promo code CLNS, and when you play your first $5 lineup, you will get $50 instantly. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, so Matt has left the building again. His internet has dropped again, so we'll see if he makes it back over here. But he's gone. I don't know where the heck he went, but that's okay. We'll be back. Or he'll be back, I should say. For me, I think there was a question up here that I wanted to get to, and I think it's a question that kind of everyone's thinking about here is Christian Wilkins, right? What do you think guys think about Christian Wilkins possibly coming to New England for the right price, of course? Now, he's got some injury stuff. He's got some rehab stuff going on. I'm not sure exactly what's going on. Oh, Paperwave's going to take over. Thanks, Paperwaves. Appreciate you. But I'm not sure exactly what's going on over in Vegas. It's been a weird situation over there. Is Matt back? Let's see. Aha! He's back.
Hello.
There he
This
is.
is bizarre.
Yeah. So I just pulled up a question just about Christian
Wilkins.
Yeah. And listen, I would be all for it. For me, it's just money. You don't have to give up anything else. And you're not going to have to pay him a ton of money because he already's made like $20 million this year. So you're not paying him a ton of money this year. The question is, number one, what the heck happened in Vegas? There's some rumblings that it was an interaction with a teammate, and there was stuff going on that he was doing behind the scenes they didn't like. Is it an injury / rehab thing, and he's really not healthy, and that's the reason why he's not going back? And so that's kind of the Patriots got to do some investigating about that. But for me personally, when you look at it, I mean, you're talking about a defensive line with Milton Williams, Christian Barmore, Christian Wilkins, and
Keon White, Mr. Violence.
Right. I was going to say Keon White, Howard Landry. Take your pick of who else you want to throw on there. Like, that would be outrageous. That'd be an outrageous defensive line, assuming Wilkins is healthy. And I just don't know if he is right.
It doesn't, like, from everything I've read, it sounds like he's probably out for the year. And that was kind of the issue that this is all coming from. I did notice it was pointed out that the Raiders did this once. Now the NFLPA has kind of fallen into turmoil, so I think they were less likely to get some kind of pushback on, some kind of player grievance on something like this. I think it's hard to evaluate a situation like this from the outside. I will say, you bring in a coach like Vrabel, and on one hand, it's easy to make the argument that a no-nonsense guy like him is not going to go for someone like Wilkins if he's causing issues. So the Patriots aren't going to touch it. The other way you can argue it is that you bring in a coach like Vrabel because it gives you the ability to have a culture where you can take guys like Wilkins, and if there is an issue, it's not going to impact the rest of the building. He seemed to express some interest today, which I thought was interesting. Wilkins is a very good player. I wanted the Patriots to sign him when he hit free agency last year. And, if he's the same player, I'd love to have him. Obviously, some questions about that. So I think how teams around the league handle this will probably be telling in at least what they believe the truth of this situation is. But if the Patriots are sold enough to bring him in, I could very easily get behind that.
I agree. By the way, we got NFLPU. It's pretty good. It's pretty good from you.
Look, Torres with the reporting bringing them down. It's crazy.
NFLP Diddy. It's not bad. It's not bad. Yeah. Just some weird stuff going on there. You imagine that? Anyways,
yeah.
I just can't even imagine. But I almost wonder if you're the Patriots now. Again, I think you kind of have to sell it. You have to see if he's going to buy in. But for me, why not sign him to a 2-year deal? Why not give him a 2-year deal? Give him, a little bit extra money this year. And next year becomes a prove-it deal, right? You sign him to a 2-year contract. You're like, hey, we're going to make a little bit of a commitment to you here. Even if you're not healthy this year, even if you can't play this year, we're still going to give you some money this year. But next year, you're not going to have a ton of guaranteed money. And, it's going to be an incentive-laden thing for you next year. And so we'll give you some money this year, but what does it look like next year? And, if you prove yourself and if you work hard on your rehab, okay, well, now we can kind of find, maybe we'll extend you. Or maybe we'll, let kind of that season play out and then give you a nice contract at the end of the year or something like that. So, but I just, for me, it's like, could you take advantage of that? You have a ton of cap space, right? You get $60 million of cap space left. Could you take advantage of the fact that he may not be ready this year? But so what? So then you're trotting him out next year with your defensive line, and next year was the year that you really want to be good anyways. And so, can you mitigate the risk enough to make that make sense?
Well, and I think the other part of this is it's going to be what is Wilkins looking for, and what are other teams willing to offer.
Right.
If
Exactly.
the Patriots were the only team, yeah, it makes things a lot more interesting. But there's going to be presumably 30 other teams, at least
You would think.
somewhat interested in
Yeah.
Wilkins' services, and we'll see what happens. I don't think it's crazy. There's a world where Wilkins just sits for the rest of the season, rehabs on his own, and comes back the next year trying to get a bigger deal when he knows he's healthy and can prove
Yep.
that to teams. So, we'll see. You'll see what happens. I'm not going to be too upset if he doesn't land in New England. Um, but
Right.
I'm not going to get my expectations too high if he does land here, because when you see situations like this play out, where a team is willing to just be like, 1 year after bringing them in, be like, we don't want anything to do with you anymore. That's always a big red flag.
Yeah.
You should feel worse about Christian Wilkins right now than you did a year ago. But we've seen him be a good player in this league against the Patriots. So if they think he can help us win football games, then it's not my money. So I'm down to try to add him and to bring him in. I will say they have a lot of cap space this year. I don't think they have a ton next year right now. I think they're planning on rolling a lot of that over into free agency.
Yeah.
And the Patriots, one of the reasons the Patriots have a lot of cap space is because they haven't had good players to re-sign, and we're coming up pretty quickly here on them having good players to re-sign, and that's going to solve that issue pretty fast.
Yeah.
Christian Gonzalez is going to be a couple years away as after this season. He's eligible for an extension.
Yes.
So you'll have to start, thinking about that on the cap, and Drake May will be the year after that, and he would be up for an extension. So you have to plan out that money. You will have some big, big money extensions coming.
100%. And they're going to get paid. Like, the cap is going to be bigger by then.
Yes.
But they're also going to then get paid more because the cap is bigger. So it doesn't necessarily solve your cap situation. That the cap is going to be larger because you got to pay them more,
Yeah. And it's, they have a lot of money now, and I'm not opposed to them signing Christian Wilkins. But I do say it's not my money. It's always important to remember with this that it is zero sum to a degree, and that the money that could go to Christian Wilkins could also go to a different player, and
100%.
You have to weigh the opportunity cost here of all right, we could bring him in, or if he's coming in for cheap because not a lot of teams want him, that's one thing. If a lot of teams are interested and the price is higher than you might expect, all right, maybe we'd rather save some of that money for next free agency and see where things land and look market for an extension. Or the other thing is this team could be active in the trade market at some point. That's one thing. If this season starts to go better than expected, you do have the financial flexibility right now to make an addition at the trade deadline, which teams don't usually have. If you have a winning record and you want to go for it a little bit, or there's someone who's disgruntled and wants out then, and you might have to absorb a salary, Let's say there's the Brandon Ayuk deal finally to be had here at some point.
Yeah.
That type of thing. You have the cap space to make that happen.
Yeah. It's a great point. So
Speaking of receivers, do we want to talk Jalen Polk real quick?
Yeah. I mean, it's just not a good look. It's and Vrabel kind of has been pretty consistent with this his whole career about how he just doesn't love it when guys aren't healthy and has these exact types of lingering issues. Now, I know Paper Waves and a few of the guys in the chat believe in Polk, and I believe in Jalen Polk too, to an extent. The problem is that, I saw him in camp last year. He looked good in camp. Then after camp, he was a disaster. Once we put the actual pads on, he was a mess. And so, I don't know what that means, but I do know that him being hurt right now is not a good thing. It can't be helping him, because while he's hurt, Kyle Williams has looked excellent. And again, they're running routes on air for the most part. So take it with a grain of salt, if you will. But Kyle Williams looked very good. Stephon Diggs looks like, a legit, close to number one receiver. Pop has looked solid. Kayshon Boutte has been in the mix. Bourne's there. So, those are some of those things where, I look at it and just say, I don't know where there's a spot for him. I just don't you start to wonder, like you start to do the math, right? The calculus of the roster, and you just look at it and say, well, where does he fit? Like and listen, it was a disaster last year, and that's not all on Jalen Polk. That's not like 100%. Just like the year before was a disaster for Kayshon Boutte, and that wasn't all on Boutte, right? And we saw Boutte kind of bounce back and have a solid year. Could Polk do that same thing? Maybe he could. The problem is that now we have other good receivers on the team, and I just don't know if there's enough spots for him on the roster. Now, on the flip side of it, if he comes back healthy and he looks good, well, then now, okay, like now, maybe we'll find a spot for him on the roster. But right now, he's on the outside looking in.
Well, Polk's probably no higher than 7 on the depth chart when everyone's healthy right now, and he apparently is too injured to be practicing, but not so injured that he's on the PUP or the non-football injury list. So what is he? That's kind of what you ask. And we know, like you said, Vrabel has had the history with this stuff. So I don't know, like the math does not work out in his favor right now. Obviously that can change if he comes back and plays better football. But right now he's not. And I have a hard time believing this particular coaching staff is going to give him any benefit of the doubt on this stuff. He's not their problem. He was drafted with different administration. That was last year. So if he's not good, it's not their fault. There's no incentive here. And that goes with all of these guys who have been drafted. Look at the conversation we were just having about Caden Wallace, and they're just moving him to guard. I loved the pick when they picked Polk. I really liked him as a prospect. It has not worked out so far. I hope he can figure it out. He'd make this team better if he can. He needs to get on the field first to start proving that. I think there's a roster spot to be had. Maybe, you could convince them that they don't need Hollins, Boutte, and Bourne all at the same time, and that they should have Polk instead of one of those three. And I think Hollins is a lock. So Boutte and Bourne are those two guys that, take one of their spots, but got to be out there to do it. Right. And also, the fact that Diggs is healthy complicates this. There were a lot of people projecting Diggs to be on the PUP list.
Absolutely.
So the first 6 weeks, you were going to get, an extra wide receiver on the roster maybe, and that's not happening. And I think we're all assuming that Hollins is going to play. I don't even know why.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the injury is for Hollins.
The timeline does not. There's 3 guys on PUP on offense. The timeline doesn't sound severe for any of them, just based on the way people are talking about them. So, at some point, he's going to be back, and if Polk's playing, he's going to be firmly with that third team. And you also look at it like this. If he's playing in preseason games, but he's playing with a little of Josh Dobbs and mostly with Ben Wooldridge, how much of an opportunity is he even going to get? Which, that's life in the NFL. That's how this works. He was a 2nd round pick last year, and
so Nelson even says it right here. Like Polk and Baker are going to be on the team, and this is the thing, right? If we go with the assumption that Polk and Baker are both going to be on the team, right? Let's just say that Nelson's right and Polk and Baker are on the team this year. How many receivers can you keep, right? And so let's just say you're keeping 7. Let's say you're keeping 7. Let's just say you're keeping 7. Let's get nuts with it and say they're keeping 7. That means you have 5 more. You have Diggs, Hollins, Bourne, Williams, Pop,
and Boutte.
And that's not even including Kayshon Boutte. So that's that's the hard part. You know what I mean? And again, anyway, maybe they trade Kendrick Bourne, maybe who knows? But there's just
if Polk and Baker both make this team, it's because they play really well and they force the team to cut a veteran or trade a veteran.
Right.
We haven't heard anything good about Javon Baker so far in this camp. I feel like since he got to New England, has he really even I feel like the best moment he's had in New England so far was that pass he dropped in the preseason game last year. That's at least it was all right. Well, at least he was open for it. So he hasn't really shown much of anything, and Polk had a couple of moments, but I it feels like we're not getting too high on Kyle Williams yet, which is good because like Polk looked good at this point last year. Taquan Thornton looked decent at this point a couple of years ago, and like football's a different game when the pads.
But hold on though, Taquan Thornton stepping in. He's stepping in Kansas City this year. So like, I mean,
that would be kind of funny
Thornton in Kansas City this year.
Yes, okay. I will root for him, but
yeah, right.
But no, I mean, I just think like Bourne is, I think, the obvious guy to potentially get cut here due to contract and age.
Yeah,
if somebody is able to take that spot. Right now, I almost feel better about Efton Chisholm taking that spot than Polk or Baker because we haven't heard anything good about Baker and Polk's not out there. So, like, until that happens, at least Chisholm is something new. He's something different.
Well, I think
the likeliest, I think, is that none of those guys are on the roster.
Yeah, and so I think, and Paper always makes a good point about we have to revisit Polk and poor QB play and so on and so forth and whatever. But sure, like I'm not advocating for them to cut Jalen Polk like today.
Yeah, I'm
just saying he's on the outside looking in. He's got a lot of work to do to get himself back into that situation, right? And I think that's kind of the situation. And unfortunately, I know he's got some muscle tightness right now, and it is what it is for him. But Vrabel has talked about the fact that he doesn't love when guys have that soft tissue stuff, that muscle injuries, because they're nagging injuries. And guys that have those injuries seem to have them consistently. And he's on record saying that, right? So when you add all that stuff up together, plus the guys that are in front of him, plus the way he played last year, it's, that's where it gets concerning. Now, again, maybe he's back on Monday and he looks like a different guy on Monday. That'd be great. That'd be awesome. Because, if you're telling me that Polk and Baker are playing good enough that, and Nelson, by the way, I agree that he's a better separator than Booty. The problem is he can't catch the ball and he doesn't know how to run a route. So
I don't even think he's a better separator than Booty. I mean, look at last year. Booty just straight up took his job.
He did. He did take his job. That's
and
true.
Booty was a 6th rounder, and Polk had the edge coming out of camp and started like 5 of the first 6 games of the season.
Well, he's talking about Baker is a better separator than Booty, but either way, either way. But I think Baker is a good separator. I just think he doesn't know how to run a route, and his road tree is very, very limited in college, and so he just doesn't. That's the thing. And listen, if both those guys can elevate their game to a level where we're looking at that, quote unquote top of the depth chart and saying, well, we got to figure out a way to find a way to get these guys on the team. That's a great problem to have. And I'm rooting for that because I liked the Polk pick at the time. I loved the Javon Baker pick at the time. And so I would love for those guys to work out. I'm just today on July 25th, 2025, I'm looking at it saying, I don't see it. Maybe it'll happen. I just don't see it. It's a long shot. And so I'm rooting for it to happen. I'm just not optimistic it's going to happen.
Yeah. I will say there's Paper Waves in the chat is talking about how Polk didn't get playing time with May and did get playing time with Brissett. That's because Polk was at his best. It was in camp. So he had the benefit of the doubt starting the season, didn't play well. And then by the time May came in, Woody was playing better. So,
Polk couldn't even line up right when he was on the field at the end of the season. Yeah. He was a mental mess by the end of the year.
Yeah, and they had to scratch him. Did they scratch him from the Jets game, or was that he had a concussion? Right, he got a concussion in the Jacksonville game. I think. Yeah. But he had that stretch of games. San Francisco, Miami, Houston, Jacksonville last year was a mess for him, and 2 of those games came with May as the quarterback, and he just never really recovered from it. And in a objectively bad receiving core last year.
Yeah,
he couldn't. He had the opportunity. He had the edge up to win playing time and couldn't stay on the field. That's the tougher part about it. You look at the Patriots receiving core, like on a winning football team, Pop's probably wide receiver 3, and Booty is probably a wide receiver 4, and Polk's not getting playing time over them, and then also Baker's not even getting playing time over Polk. So, I love those picks at the time. Doesn't mean the guy's going to work out, and clearly it is not so far. Hopefully that changes. I'm rooting for those guys to turn things around, but if you're this coaching staff, what you are inheriting is a pair of rookie receivers who combined couldn't have 100 receiving yards in their rookie seasons.
Right.
Like, the offense wasn't good last year, but that meant they had opportunities to be, doing something and making a difference, and they didn't perform. And Vrabel didn't make the picks, so he doesn't have an incentive here either to be like, we have to make this work. It's nice if it works. If they come in and they play well, it's awesome. It makes your team better. If it doesn't, that's no sweat off of Vrabel's back.
Well, and I think that's the point. And listen, was the coaching staff a disaster last year? He absolutely was a disaster last year. The coaching staff was a mess. Could any wide receiver really show their true potential last year? Probably not. Kayshon Boutte had 43 receptions for 589 yards and 3 touchdowns. So
Kendrick Bourne only played in 12 games and he had over 300 receiving yards.
Right. So just don't tell me that no one could have been successful last year with the coaching staff they had, because they had some receivers, and Boutte didn't have a great year. It's not like he was this unbelievable player. But if Jalen Polk put out those numbers, we'd be sitting there saying, all right, we're like Jalen Polk's like to the moon.
Yeah.
Kayshon Boutte put up those numbers, and people are talking about, yeah, he's probably gonna get cut. It's like, and so that's the thing where it's like the expectations are a little bit, it's like we got to try to figure out something. I know Polk's only in his second year, and I know Baker's only in his second year, but just because they're only in their second year doesn't mean that, we're just going to give them extra time. And to your point, Matt, they didn't make these picks. Elliott Wolf might be loyal to those guys, but Mike Vrabel isn't. Elliott Wolf's not making a final decision, right? And again, in papers, you can say Brissett threw at his feet more than his hands. That's fine. Why did Kayshon Boutte have all those catches then? Like, I don't like that's my issue with it. And again, we could talk about that, and we can kind of go, and you could say, well, it wasn't his fault. And I'm not necessarily disagreeing with you that it wasn't his fault. But like, I don't know. Like, what do you want to say?
Nelson's saying Vrabel didn't pick Pop or Boutte either. He didn't, but they've shown that they could be productive in the NFL, and
right.
That's the difference here. Pop and Boutte both had significant production in this receiving core last year, and Polk was behind those guys. So I'm a Polk fan. I'm rooting for him to succeed. There's nothing on the field right now that tells me that I expect him to be on this roster in a month or whenever that final cutdown date is. Is it the 24th? It might actually be a month from today.
I think you're right. Yeah, it's somewhere around there. But either way, I mean, it's so that's the thing, is that
it's the 26th, so a month and a day from today.
So a month and a day. So there you go. And listen, again, none of this means anything, right? Like, none of this means, just because we're talking about it right now, nothing's set in stone yet. It's all about what happens on the field. But right now, you look at it and say, well, if camp ended today, these are the receivers that would be on the roster, right? Like, that's just the truth, right?
Yeah.
Now, again, if Polk comes back and if Baker starts to show up and we're like, oh, okay, Baker's making some plays out here, right? Because we know that the second team offense is going to go in and run some plays, and he's going to have an opportunity to catch some passes, and he's going to, have an opportunity to make some plays, and maybe he will. But it's going to be, what do we see from these guys? And can they push those other guys off the roster? Because right now, they're on the outside looking in. If camp ended today, neither of those guys would be on the roster. And so, can they make a push to get on the roster? That's definitely possible. And again,
talent's there.
I'm rooting for it. The talent's there, but can they do it? That's the question.
Yeah, Yep. So we'll see here. Yeah. I don't think there's any other big roster things that we have yet.
Not really.
Yeah, there's not a lot. It's most of these guys are in the positions you would expect, and we won't really know. Joint practices will be the first big tell of how do these guys
Yes.
play together. We'll start to get an idea when the pads come on of if there's an immediate mismatch of some kind on the line of scrimmage, or coordination issues. Penalties
Yeah.
keep popping up. I know Jared Wilson and Drake May had a miscommunication on a snap and stayed after for it.
Yep.
Doesn't bother me at this point.
No, and that's stuff that will figure itself out, and then we'll see what happens. But
they have the time to figure it out at least.
Exactly. And that joint practice, as you said, that's going to be more important. The joint practices are more important than any of the preseason games. The preseason games, some of the guys that are at the bottom of the roster get a chance to shine a little bit. And then they become kind of a name. Who the hell's the kid that went to the Ravens? Malik Cunningham, right? Malik Cunningham?
Yeah.
He made a name for himself in the preseason. He can't really play quarterback, but he made a name for himself in the preseason. Now he's playing wide receiver over in Baltimore, or kind of on the fringe of Baltimore's roster, but he became a name. And so is that going to happen? Can someone do that in the preseason again? This year, can someone be the Bam Childress this year of the Patriots, preseason? And then does that matter that someone can do that? Because sometimes it doesn't, so that's what we'll see. But yeah.
I think I only have one. It's 1.5 other notes. It's not practice related though.
Okay.
We got 2 bits of uniform news about the Patriots.
Yes.
One of them we knew was they have the throwbacks. We got the dates for when they're going to wear them.
Yep.
So they're wearing them against the Steelers in week 3 and the Giants in week, I don't know, but it's the Monday night game and it's December 1st.
11 or 12. Yeah, it's the Monday after Thanksgiving. It's literally me coaching girls basketball. It's literally night 1 of tryouts for basketball. Home Monday Night Football. I'm like, oh great, you scheduled it for literally day 1 of tryouts, so I'm gonna have to go to tryouts and then somehow get to the game, but I'll be there.
Yes,
but nevertheless,
this does fit with how they've kind of done it in the past, which is they like to wear the throwbacks for one of their primetime games. Yeah, and they like to wear them against NFC opponents, so they're doing that, and then they like to throw in one against an AFC opponent, usually somewhere like end of September, October. That's kind of when they've done it historically, and I do think the red uniforms against the Steelers, black and yellow, will be a very nice contrast. And we've gotten Patriots Steelers as a uniform matchup, as an annual thing now for 25 years. Having an alternate in there to break that up, I like. We'll say with the Giants one, because the one thing that threw me off about this, the Patriots are a team that wears blue, but they're going to be wearing the red throwbacks. The Giants are a team that wears blue, but their road uniforms are more red. So this is going to be a game, I think, between 2 teams that wear blue, where both teams are really wearing more red. I hope the Giants wear their 80s or 90s.
That would be dope. That would be so cool if they wear the That's what they should do. We'll see if they do it, but that's what they should do for that game. That would look awesome.
Yep. And then the other bit, the NFL Rivalries program was talked about, I think, back at the draft or free agency. We're getting more details now. So we already knew that every team in the AFC East and NFC West is getting a special uniform to wear in one game against a division opponent this year. They will be revealed on August 28th. And we got teasers for them. The Patriots teaser seemed to be Nor'easter themed. They're going to be wearing them the Thursday night game at home against the Jets. And they seemed to be, they're playing up the Nor'easter. They're playing up the the Boston versus New York angle. And I don't know, my first thought when I saw all the stuff around it is, will this be something inspired by the all-white uniforms the Boston Patriots used to wear? They're definitely up, we talk about the Boston element of it. I thought that could be kind of fun.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think they should kind of get kind of interesting with it. Now, what's interesting is that the Patriots are the home team. So they're talking about a Nor'easter, but are the Patriots going to wear white jerseys at home? I mean, I guess they could.
I think I think the last time we wore white at home might have been the 2010 season opener against the Bengals. No, sorry, 2011 against the Cowboys.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
I
know
think it
that
was
in
silver.
'94 they wore their throwback jerseys. And then and I think they wore white. They're like white throwbacks at home, which were dope jerseys. But
The
um,
only other time they've worn the white throwback since then was the infamous 09 overtime road loss to the Josh McDaniels Denver
that's
Broncos
right.
in those
With those
AFL throwbacks.
awful jerseys.
The Broncos ones.
Yeah, Broncos jerseys are
Those
just
Broncos
gross.
uniforms to me are so bad that they're good. Like, I
Yeah,
don't think they look good, but I do think they have a certain charm to them. For anyone who hasn't seen them, Google these. The Broncos are there when they wore yellow and brown, and the socks are striped, not horizontally like you usually see,
vertically, it's
but
unbelievable.
vertically.
It's wild.
It's ridiculous. Well, and like
Yeah.
the uniform itself is pretty plain, so like the socks end up being like the distinctive aspect of it. It's what you remember. What's funny too is I think it's like brown helmet, brown pants, and a yellow jersey. I think is how it is.
Yeah, it's
And then they have got the brown and yellow striped socks. And then when they have the road version, it's just a white jersey with white and brown socks. They almost like drop yellow on the road.
yeah, it's
That was
interesting.
funny.
So, anyways,
The
we'll
Broncos.
see what that looks like. But like if the Patriots wearing white, what are the Jets going to be wearing? And like,
I don't.
yeah, I don't know.
I don't mind the white at home. I think that'd be fun. The Patriots for a little bit used to do it for like one game a year, or with the silver uniforms, wearing those at home, which is almost white at home. The other team has to wear color.
Right,
Um,
right.
so I wouldn't mind that. I've always thought it'd be kind of fun doing like white at home for like across the league for 1 week, like early in the year when it's hot, because that's something that you see.
Yeah,
Like I
Miami
think
does
of
it, and Dallas
when I
does it,
think
or
of like
whatever.
that. And when I think of the '07 Pats, like the openers in New York with the Patriots wearing blue and the Jets wearing their all white, because it was like a very warm,
That's right.
early September Sunday afternoon. And I always think of that. I wouldn't mind the Patriots doing that. This is going to be November though, so
Yeah,
um,
yeah, and a night game,
I'm
so it's not like
yeah, it's not warm. You're not wearing it for heat reasons.
no.
I will say I'm a little
Mhm.
bit like this whole program. Like this could be fun. This could also just be like 8 of the worst uniforms we've ever seen in our lives that look like some of those Photoshop concepts that go around from people who've never used Photoshop before. Like there's a chance of
Yeah,
that. The Bills are going to be wearing theirs against the Patriots in Week 5, and like the player reactions, they released a video today with the players reacting to seeing it for the uniforms the first time, and it's like there's a couple where they take the blindfold off and they see it, and they definitely take a moment to register what is in front of them. And one of them is like, it might have been Josh Allen's, like touching the shoulders of the jersey, and he's like, "Oh, it's cool that they put that up there." And I'm like, "What are we getting ourselves into? Like, what is on these
yeah,
uniforms?
yeah.
Like, are they going to be like,
So it's just the road team wears a normal uniform, and the home team wears
yeah,
a different uniform.
yeah."
It seems strange to me. Why wouldn't you just make a new uniform for both teams? It's a rivalry
I
game.
think
Isn't
when
the whole
I
point?
do think I don't know. I do think it would make more sense to designate one game as a rivalry game and have both teams wear something new for it. But I do think
Oh boy, no, we've lost Matt again. Well, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not doing this again. So, thank you for tuning in. We appreciate it. We're going to be back Monday night after the Patriots' first padded practice, we assume, on Monday. We'll be back for then. So, thanks for tuning in. For Matt and for me, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to you Monday night. Have a great weekend. Shout out to my wife. 17th anniversary tomorrow. So happy anniversary to her. Thanks for tuning in. Be good to each other and go Pats.